Welcome everyone to this session with Amy Brooks. And it's all about GreenFaith Circles of Care and Resilience. And I just want to introduce Amy again to everybody. And I'm June Blotnick. I'm the director of Clean Air Carolina here in Charlotte. And thank you for being here. So Amy is a U.S. organizer with GreenFaith, and GreenFaith is a multi-faith global climate and environmental justice organization. She served in the Charlotte area in the past with the Regional AIDS Interfaith Network, or RAIN. She's also been a pastor with the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Lake Norman here in Mecklenburg County. She is currently on the board of McMinn as vice president and on the board of the Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry of North Carolina. Amy cares deeply about the intersection of race, health, and climate for all people and the planet, which I'm sure you've got that about her. And we're so glad that she's been a part of this, planning the conference and being here today for this breakout. And Amy lives in Huntersville with her family. And I'll just turn it over to you, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you, June. Thank you so much. It's great to be here with all of you today. Welcome. And I would actually like to start by just finding out who is in the room. So I would love it if you would start by introducing yourselves, if you would. Share your name, your faith tradition or community that you're a part of. And if your congregation is already engaged in some kind of climate work or creation care work, I would really love to hear what you're working on. And we have time because we're a relatively small group, so you don't have to rush through. Go ahead and share what share these answers to these questions. And I can call on people, or we can kind of popcorn it around the room. Let's start with John Thigan. Is that how you say your name?
Thigpen. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, Thigpen. Okay, there is a P there. I just put on my glasses, sir.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
I've had much worse pronunciations than that. We're good. John Thigpen, I currently work for the Natural Resources Defense Council, serving here in the city of Charlotte. And I've been in that role for almost about 2.5 years now. I grew up in the Episcopal Church, although I will confess that I've been pretty inactive as of late. Please forgive me.
You're fine. We're fine. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for that. And so I guess since you're claiming your inactivity, you aren't currently part of a congregation that's doing any work. So we're going to actually come back because there's going to be a second round of questions here that I think you'll have an answer to for that. So let's see who else we have. How about Kirsten?
Hi, I'm Kirsten Ryan. I work with Clean Air Carolina. I do not have a faith background, but I'm very passionate about the environment, and I think it's going to take everyone from every aspect in our society to help solve for the climate change. So happy to be here and learning with all of you today.
Thank you so much. Let's see, Thomas Hansen. Is that right? Is that your last name? I can't see the full name.
Yeah, Thomas Hansen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm affiliated with Wedgwood Church, which is a very small church that is basically reinventing itself. It's we don't really have a concrete goals in regard to climate change, except everyone more or less agrees that we need to do something. My background is I worked for over 30 years in optical fiber, which is one of the backbones of the web. It's one of the greenest products that's ever been invented. But so I have strong feelings about the climate and our community effort to fix it, improve it anyway.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Who else would like to go? We have a few more people.
I'll go.
Sure, Richard.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Sometimes I've had some audio problems with this computer, but I'm Richard Pratt, and I am a member of the Unitarian Universalist community of Charlotte. And through there, I've known both June and, of course, you, Amy. And the community, we just changed our name from church to community, so I'll struggle with that a little bit. But we do have an environmental justice group that has, I guess we taught a couple of year-long classes on environmental justice. And out of that, we have, I think, a group of members who are interested in this field. And one of the things we're trying to do now is find a way to find opportunities to engage in it, in environmental justice. And then personally, I have 5 granddaughters. And Amy, like you, trying to figure out what kind of world we're going to leave to the next generation. That makes this an important issue for all of us, I think.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Richard. Yes, absolutely. And Michael.
Yes, hello, I'm Michael Jemison. I am a member of SGI USA. It's a Buddhist organization. I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and I've been doing that for the last 35 years this year.
Oh.
And although we don't have an environmental wing under our organization at this time, I also am a member of Clean Air Carolina on the board, as well as Concord Wildlife Association, which is a part of the North Carolina Wildlife Association, and as well as the, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to say. And oh, my environment, that's what I wanted to say. I work at Bank of America, and I'm one of the co-chair leaders on my environment program there. So that's kind of my background.
Oh, great. Do you know Keely DeVoy?
No, that name doesn't sound familiar.
All right. I know she consults with Bank of America on environmental things, so I thought maybe you would know her. So thank you, friends. Great to hear where you're, a piece of where you're starting from. I am going to try to do a better job this time of sharing my slides to take us through a little bit of a process of thinking about how we do this GreenFaith work. So let me share my slides here. Okay, so here we are. We've just, why does this happen to me? I don't want it to change yet.
Can you go use the arrows back?
Back?
Mhm.
Oh, thank you. So we've done some introductions. What is your name, your faith, your congregation or organization? What are you or your congregation or community doing or not doing? And the last question I want us to think about again is, as a person of faith, I care about creation, care, and climate justice because. And Richard, you may have already answered that question, but let's take a moment and really think about that question. Why do we care about this? What is our why? And I'm going to invite people to share. You can just call it out. We can take turns. I don't want to call on people, but we'd love to hear what you have to say. What is your why?
This is June, and for me, it's really a justice issue. That it's unfair, unjust, that the things we're doing to the planet and to its people. And so I come at it from that angle.
Beautiful. Thank you.
For me, it's a matter of survival. If we don't fix it, we're going to die as a race, and it's going to be very painful process of dying. If not now, then when?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I like that. If it's not now, than when. It's really important that we do as much as we can to take care of the environment and our planet as a whole. It's going downhill, and even though it looks beautiful and everything, we're doing some major damage to the planet, and we want to leave it at least as better than we found it for future generations.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Anyone else want to share? What's your why? Why do you care? What brought you here today?
This is John. I'll go. So I've been in the environmental profession for 15, 20 years now, and have always taken a very technical, scientific approach to the work that I do. And I've never really thought much about climate justice, but in my current role, I've really become exposed to it and learned a lot about it. And it's been incredibly overwhelming, to so much so like that it's kind of a second, I guess, kind of moment of clarity in my life, where like I realized when I wanted to do environmental work, like this is comparable to that moment where I kind of had that realization that the climate justice is just as important to me now, and understanding, how trying to address climate change but not addressing it in a just way can be, detrimental to our cause rather than supportive of it. And so that's my why.
Thank you so much. And I see Natalie Lockhart has joined us. Natalie, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to share with you where we are. We've had a go around where we shared our name and our faith and our organization and what maybe our congregation was or was not doing, if we have a congregation. And then we're asking this question: as a person of faith, I care about creation and climate justice because. We're asking, what is your why? So we invite you to share to any of that if you are willing. We would love to hear from you, and welcome. And others who have not shared their why are also welcome to share too. If there's anyone else that wants to share.
For me, it's very much a sense of urgency, to echo the others. As a younger person, a recent college graduate, I really got into environmental issues in high school and college, seeing the impact living in the South. And now I'm interested in the impact of climate disproportionately on LGBTQ individuals who are disproportionately homeless. And so things like urban heat and climate change really affect those populations. So that's one of the reasons I'm interested. Oh, and I work at Clean Air Carolina.
I love Clean Air Carolina. Great. Anyone else like to share?
I'll just echo what everyone else is saying. I think I'm 32, almost 33, and I grew up in Michigan and have been able to watch the Great Lakes recede and spent some time in Arizona and watched the heat go up. And so I think it's very much creating that sense of urgency and educating people. And like Thomas said, it's a matter of when. Like, our species is declining, our birth rates are declining. It has a lot to do with health and equity. And so just really trying to educate people and get them more involved, which is why I'm grateful for being able to be a part of this conference today and hearing all of these different voices from different communities and how we can work together.
Great. Thanks, Kirsten. Natalie, and I see someone else is also joining us. So let's just pause here for a second and see if either Natalie or Hema want to share. Welcome to both of you. We've done a go round where we shared our name and our congregation and what our community, if we have one, is doing or not doing. But we're asking this question, this why question. As a person of faith, I care about creation and climate justice because. So I want to pause here for one more moment and see if either of you would like to share your answers to those questions before we move on. And you would need to unmute yourself if you wanted to do that.
Hi, can you repeat the question, please?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you see the slides, Emma? The
Yes.
slide? Yeah. So your name, your faith, if your congregation is doing anything when it comes to creation care, why you care about it, that kind of thing.
Okay. My name is Hema, location Charlotte, faith and congregation. I belong to Hindu community. And my, as of now, with the COVID situation, they're not doing much, but they do the tree planting ceremonies, and they also do the cleaning the creeks. So there's a small creek which goes behind the Hindu temple. So they work on cleaning the creek. And as a person of faith, I can so I believe in the creation and climate justice, because things have changed. I mean, from the time we have started seeing the changes in the towards the environment, a lot of things have changed. We want more friendlier environment, or more of a sorry, sudden question, I couldn't really think. I want to change something good for the earth. I want to do some future generation needs more trees and more oxygen to breathe. There are a lot of trees that have been cut down. I can see it myself from the time of for past 7 years. I've been seeing that a lot of trees that have been cut down, and many housing communities have come in. So that is something which is not good for the earth. I mean, right from the small living beings like snake. Yeah, people complain about snakes. Oh, I'm getting a lot of snakes in my backyard. And that is, how can I say, like, you built a house where its house was. So that is not really right. I cannot keep complaining that the snakes are coming. You are the one who came to the place where it had its own house and family. So that is something I would like to change.
That's beautiful, Hema. Thank you so much. I love that. I love that story. So thank you, everyone, for sharing. I spent a lot of time on this, and I think it's really important to spend time on this, because we need to know why we're doing this work. When we are in touch with why we're doing this work, we will stay grounded. And what we're going to do today is really dig into that a little bit more. So let me move forward. Some of the things that you talked about, well, let's see. At the moment, I want my slides to work.
Right arrow.
I know, I'm trying. It's not doing it. It's misbehaving. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I just have a couple of slides that kind of demonstrate some of the things that we talked about, why we're here. We're here because we're concerned. We know that things are unjust. We are seeing the flooding, the drought, and the fires that are occurring, these impacts of climate change. They are upon us. It's not a future thing. We might be here because we care about justice. And I just put this slide in here to be really clear. Sometimes we throw a lot of terms around and we don't always know what they mean. So what is climate injustice? And so here are a couple of bullet points. Climate injustice is the disproportionate impact of environmental and climate hazards on people of color and low-income people across the world. People of color, people in the global south, and poor people who have done the least to contribute to the climate crisis that we are in now are the most impacted. And I think we should unpack that for just a minute here. If you have done any studies on this, you know that there's a way that we can measure our carbon footprint. And the carbon footprint of people who live in the United States is among the highest, if not the highest, in the world. And in the global south, these carbon footprints are much lower. People tend to walk more. People tend to not have the big houses. People tend to not have access to electricity, so they're not using air conditioning, they're not heating, a lot of different things that make their carbon footprint much lower than ours tends to be. And yet, when it comes to the impacts of what's happening, the global south is greatly more impacted than the global north, at least at this point. And so there is that injustice that's happening. So that, I hope, explains a little bit. And then another term that comes up in this conversation is environmental racism. And that is when the things that are detrimental to the health of a community and to health of a planet are deliberately, by policy, situated in communities of color or in poor communities, those communities that have the least resources to fight against it, which is why you see so many of the fights, not just in our country, but around the globe, happening in indigenous, poor, and people of color communities. So I mentioned what's happening in Minnesota. Jennifer mentioned what has happened in Robeson County. Mac Ledgerton, the name that she mentioned earlier, works very closely with the Lumbee Indians that are prevalent in that county. And so this is where the racism plays out, right? We can go put this in this community because these people, they aren't going to be able to say anything, or we think we don't even have to consciously do it. But these people are less valuable, so it's okay if we put this in their community. And then lastly, we love the environment. We enjoy the environment. We enjoy beautiful things, and we care about the future generation. This is actually a photograph of my daughter running cross country, not this past year because they didn't have it, but the year before. And I love this picture because she's just going all out with all her joy and all her energy. I got the picture with her feet off the ground, but it was also 95 degrees that day. And I thought to myself, is it really a good idea for my daughter to be doing cross country at the end of August? Because it's so hot. So like you even have this place where on the one hand, I want to enjoy the beauty of the environment. And on the other hand, we're questioning the activities that bring us joy that are outside. That is just so super sad to me. So I want to pause here for a second and as we think about climate change, as we think about environmental injustice, let's get personal. Where is this happening in our area of the world? Who are we seeing that's affected? And then the second two questions are sort of more of a solutions oriented, but let's just sit with that for a second. How is this impacting you? I had a conversation with a dear friend of mine, and I love her to pieces. And we were talking about this, and she said, if I'm really honest, it's not really impacting me. Like I've been carrying on as usual. It was a very honest thing for her to say. I think as we've had more conversations, she's realizing more, but that was the initial response. It's not hurting me. I don't see it. Where do you see it happening? Who do you see being affected? And you don't have to answer. We don't have to do a go around every time, but I just want us to think about that. Think about that as we do this work, because contextualizing this is really important. Being able to name the places that.
I recently saw a video that was put out by PBS and National Public Radio about the impact of plastic. And in that video, there was a shot of the Pacific Ocean, an area probably 5 miles in diameter, completely covered with plastic. And that's one of the things I think that we can have an impact on. The conclusion of this video was that we need to recycle plastic. We're not going to undo plastic. We can't remove plastic from our daily lives just by a magic wand, but we need to recycle. The other conclusion was we don't really, as a society, we don't know how to recycle. You know, the plastic people that make plastic count on the so-called consumer to do recycling. Well, the consumer doesn't really know how to do anything but consume. As a society, we need to learn how to recycle.
Right. So you saw a video, and that may not be right in our area of the world, but you resonated with that looking at an ocean filled with plastic, 5-mile gyre of plastic island is out there floating. And so who's affected?
We all are. We're surrounded by the ocean. I mean, the ocean is central to our environment totally.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then does everybody know, does everybody kind of recognize that you know, that what happens in the ocean actually matters to us? I mean, if we think about where all these storms are happening, right? As the ocean heats up, we're getting more and more storms. It's raising the sea level. More and more people are going to get flooded out of their communities. So the ocean, what happens in the ocean really matters. So one answer to the next question.
And it's a slow process.
It is.
You know,
It's not as immediate as some other things, but yes, but it's happening faster than we thought it would, isn't it?
But it's the point is it's hard to undo very quickly.
Okay. So what can we do? One thing you said is recycle. Is there something else we could do about plastic? What's another thing we could do about plastic?
You
Don't
ban
buy it.
plastic bags in the grocery stores.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Could we put
Yeah.
pressure? Could we put pressure on people who produce things in plastic to change?
I think that's been tried, and they're stubborn people.
Mm-hmm.
Do
Yeah,
you
we've
think
been.
Go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, we've been trying to, you know, the bottle bill back in the 70s, right? There were only a few states that put a tax on the bottles. And now, you know, it's hard to find glass bottles. But, you know, even here in Charlotte, right when the pandemic was starting, you know, all of a sudden the city of Charlotte couldn't recycle the things they used to be. Because we were sending, I think we were sending them over to China maybe to be recycled. But, you know, so we want to recycle, but it's also the reduce, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle. So reduce the plastic we buy and reuse. I have Ziploc bags and I rinse them out and reuse those as long as I can. But the ocean is the biggest carbon sink. And if it's filled with a bunch of junk and it's hot, it's totally destabilizing the climate. So that's another thing.
Yep. Well, that's where the storms come from. You gave the more scientific answer. Good. Thank you for that, June. Yeah. I mean, that when the storms are brew out over the ocean and then they come in and they flood communities and cause all kinds of damage. And over time, as the ocean heats up, it's going to rise because ice caps are melting. So who has the power in this situation?
Well, the companies that produce it have the power, but I really do think that this plastic issue is becoming larger and larger. I mean, when people see those pictures, like you said, Thomas, it's like, oh my God, you know, and then, you know, the animals in the ocean, the mammals and the fish. I think the power is growing when it comes to the plastic.
Which power, June? Which power are you
the
talking
power
about?
to change things. And I'm not involved in that issue other than, you know, there are people in Charlotte, including Hardin Minor, that really want to get a ban on plastic bags, you know, in the grocery stores. And so I think we have an opportunity, and Kirsten, we have an opportunity in Charlotte to do that. The legislature did that and then they took it back for a couple coastal counties. But we have to start somewhere. And I do think even in the Triangle, there's a group that's trying to ban plastic in the school cafeterias. And so there are people organizing.
The power is in the people. That's the answer. If we can think about how we can align ourselves and organize ourselves, I think the reason that these things don't happen is it's a small group of people. They're fighting, they get tired, they get defeated, they quit because they're exhausted. And then we like cycle around until we do it again. But if we are able to organize enough people, we have the power. We absolutely do. We cannot forget that. So I want to bring back the slide that I love about the fishies, because here we are scattering away from plastic bags that are trying to like suffocate us. We can turn around and we can build the power that we need. And at GreenFaith, we really understand this to be a relational process. We call it relational organizing. A lot of people do it, but it's the methodology that we have chosen to do this work, because that cycle that I just outlined to you, where people worked on it and worked on it and worked on it and they got exhausted and quit. How many of you have been a part of a process like that before? You had a group of people, maybe it was at your church, maybe it was at your workplace, whatever, and you tried, and eventually things changed. You didn't get what you wanted. Somebody moved away. Somebody else just got tired. Somebody got sick. They couldn't be on your group anymore, whatever. We wait, and people get worn out because we don't have the infrastructure in place to organize ourselves and to keep ourselves engaged and energized. Like, this takes energy, right? So we have to figure out how to do that. That is what GreenFaith is really interested in doing. What is that process for engaging people over the long term in enough numbers that we can actually move the policies?
Well, does GreenFaith have regular meetings?
Yes, once people train through the circle process, we're starting to hold regional meetings. Yes, we have welcome calls quarterly. We have theology calls. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved, but specifically the GreenFaith Circle of Care and Resilience is those we're starting to do monthly.
And do you have a monthly meeting in the Charlotte area?
No, we do it all on Zoom. I'm in the process of hopefully building a GreenFaith Circle for Charlotte. That's one of the things I would love to see happen, would be to have a GreenFaith Circle here in Charlotte, and more than one if we can find enough people, where we figure out what the issues are that we want to address, and we're going to start building power around that and agitate for those.
What do you think is the critical mass?
Well, for one circle, let's go through this a little bit about the circle building, and then I'll come back to that question because it's a great question. So a GreenFaith Circle for us is at least 5 people. And these are some of the components that we outline. Passionate about faith-based action on creation, care, and climate justice. Folks who are eager to be part of a global multi-faith community of circles. Folks who are hungry for spiritual reflection, education, training, and creative mobilization. Folks who really want to do it in a targeted, strategic, organized, and relational way. And folks who are ready to take action. And so our process is to create circles that are ready to do this. That's what we are interested in doing. So how does this happen? Well, actually, let me back up 1 second and just say what kind of action. So this can happen on different things. We've been talking about a couple. We've talked really about a systemic transformation, which would be getting rid of plastic, like say in grocery stores in Charlotte. That would be a system-wide transformation. And it overlaps a bit with institutional, because the institution we're focusing on is the grocery store. But the circles are formed to focus on any one of these 3 areas of transformation. Personal transformation, folks who are interested in changing their own personal habits so they reflect the values they want to promote. Folks who want to focus on institutional transformation, that are going to primarily focus on their communities to green their rituals, their education, their operations, community engagement and finance, and finally, systemic transformation. A group of people can come in and be a circle on any one of these 3, but in the process, we're going to learn about all of them. Really, eventually, we will end up touching on all of these. This is an interlocking process. You may start saying, I want to do something systemic, but you're going to figure out that, in fact, in order to do this, I'm also going to have to make some personal changes. So we can attack the grocery stores and say, we want you to stop plastic, but then we're going to pause and think, well, how am I contributing to this problem? Do I need to shop at a different place that doesn't use plastic bags? Do I need to give up using certain products because of the plastic? I mean, so this happens on all these levels, right? Maybe we take it to our house of faith and say, we want you to join us in this effort to stop using plastic in our supermarkets. We're gonna have a competition to see who can use the fewest number of plastic bags, and also agitate their local grocery store to stop carrying plastic bags. So there's a lot of ways that we can think about doing this. So one of the questions that you might want to think about is, what kind of GreenFaith circle are you interested in organizing or affiliating? Because you may already have a group of people that you're working with. We know that from like the late 90s into the early 2000s, a lot of congregations all over the country, at least in the United States, started green teams. And, you know, I talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, we were really engaged for a while and now we're tired. So you might have a group of people that would want to re-engage if they had the right support. So here is just an example. You could have a green team or creation care group. I don't know what I'm touching. You can have a green team or a creation care group in a congregation or a spiritual community, or you can have an interfaith circle at a city or regional level if you have an interfaith community, or you might have a single faith circle working in a city or at a regional level. I have a colleague in Alabama, and he's like, I'm sorry, we're just all Christian here. So a circle can also be a single faith. So when you start a GreenFaith circle, you can do it one of several ways. I have them listed as phases, but the truth is that you can really interchange phase 1, 2, or 3. You can identify the community you want to work with. You can spend some time, like we already did, figuring out your why, and I'll explain why that is so important in a few minutes. Or you might want to take the angle of choosing your issue and your strategy. But once you have gone through these 3, you need to do these 3, you get to this place where you are in the process of recruiting, relating, training, taking action, reflecting, learning from what you did, and then repeating. So this is the actual process of doing the work. You're bringing new people into the work, you're doing some relationship building, training on the issue, figuring out what your action is. After the action, saying, what did we learn? What do we need to do next? What do we need to change? And then do it again, maybe on that issue, or maybe you'll pick another issue. So these are the steps that we take people through if they want to form a circle. To go back to your question, Thomas, one circle by itself may have enough power to create change in maybe the group's life, maybe in the life of their even in the life of their congregation, if you have the right leaders, the right power brokers in your congregation. Let's say we want to put solar panels on the roof of our congregation. That's always a favorite one to call on. You know, who in your congregation do you need to have the ear of to help make that happen? Who are the opinion leaders in your group? Who do you need to talk to? And build that circle around with those people to push this issue forward. You aren't going to have enough, and you're not going to have enough power to get the city of Charlotte to do anything. One circle is not going to. But if we have multiple circles, or if we have a large interfaith circle that has the backing of some pretty important different communities, then people might start to listen. Oh, you know, we've got a circle that includes the park, that huge Black Baptist church, and they've joined with some of the people in, I don't know, Myers Park or South Park, or, you know, St. Matthew's Catholic Church by itself is a whole town or city, right? I mean, there's like, I don't know, 11,000 families in that community. You know, if we have the, you know, the right people at the table. So this is we are thinking about how we can be strategic. It isn't just, I'm going to go find people and do the work and then we're going to like take this action. We're actually going to think about it very carefully. Who do we need to have at the table? What is our why? What is the issue we want to tackle, and how, and what is our strategy for doing it? And then we go after it.
Mm-hmm. And Amy, I'll just add that, Thomas, one of the things Jennifer mentioned was that we've started this North Carolina Climate Ambassadors Group, and we have a training coming up in June. But, you know, we have a whole network of individuals that are not necessarily part of any organization, but want to do something about climate change. There are so many groups already organized. And just like Amy said, with the faith community, that's why we're having this summit, is like she said, is some of these churches are big enough to be small towns. And so if there's something really simple, like plastic bags is an easy one, when it comes to a range of issues we're trying to change, and we know other communities have done it. If we got all, and our goal was to have 50 congregations represented at this conference, and we have it. And we actually have almost 200 people that registered. You may not see their numbers here, but they're interested. And so I really think that that issue is something a lot of people in Charlotte could get interested in and engaged in.
Absolutely. The reason why GreenFaith really focuses on the circle work is not to create a new group, just like to be different than what's happening. Our methodology is that we need to bring new people into the work. And one of the ways to do that is to give them a space to really engage and build relationships, because that's what keeps us in the work. And then once you have teams of people who are engaged, then you have the numbers that you need. So let's say the issue becomes, plastic bags, or the issue becomes something with our sustainable energy action plan. If you have those teams already organized in your congregation or in your neighborhood or in your business who've done some of the work, then you have the connectivity and the power already organized to say, hey, we need people to show up at this. What I've experienced, and I think other people have experienced, is we often have an event and it gets a good showing, 20, 30 people. Sometimes we're lucky enough to get 150 or 200, or maybe even 400 or 500, like when Greta Thunberg showed up in front of the government center. But when she was gone, where did all those people go? We need an organizing strategy to keep those individuals engaged. And that is why we have chosen this circle development piece, because we really think that when folks are in relationship and doing the work together as a circle, it means that we're ready to go. And that's why I want to take the time to build that, because we are only as strong as the relationships that we build. Otherwise, it's just easy to forget, right? I mean, I don't see the ocean. If, I'm not saying I don't care about it, but I could say, like my friend did, this isn't impacting me right now. I don't realize that necessarily. If we are part of a community that is doing the work together and we're educating and growing our strength as a community, I think that's super important. And I think the other thing about it is groups change and grow and morph all the time, right? I mean, I did organizing. I didn't know I was doing organizing when I started Rain Care Teams with Rain 20 years ago. And, teams that stayed together were the ones that really had good relationships. They really took the time to know each other, to understand why they were doing the work. They did some social stuff together. Some of those teams stayed together for 20 years. They didn't just show up and then leave. And so I think that's one of the things that feels really right to me about this work. Because sometimes we are going to have to get tired and quit for a little while. But if we have a group there, then they can carry on the work while we take a rest, or they can remind us, what's your why? Why, Thomas, are you so passionate about this? And help us get re-engaged.
Amy, we've got about 10 minutes left. I'm not sure how many slides you have, but it would be great to pull more people into the conversation.
Okay, sure. I'll pause here. I think that's great. I mean, I was going to do another activity, but I think we can just have a conversation.
Well, that's fine. I mean,
no, it's okay. It's okay. We can do a conversation. Let's stop here. Questions people have. Thomas had one. I don't know if we answered it adequately. I don't know that there's an exact number I can put on something. I see it as pieces that we're building that we then connect. And the tipping point will be reached when we get change.
What I heard was 5 is good, 12 would be better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for an individual circle, yes. I think one of the things that we always want to be doing is figuring out how to bring more people into our circle or circles. Absolutely.
This is
Other thoughts, questions?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
This isn't so much a question, but more of an observation, and something that we've started doing at Clean Air Carolina, but it's going to your places of worship and starting there and pushing them to be sustainable. When you have your church potlucks or your meetings, are they using sustainable like, are they using paper plates and styrofoam cups? Or are they using more sustainable things? We had a really great session yesterday where they, a Presbyterian church in Denver came together, Denver, North Carolina, came together and put solar on their building so that they have better energy. And so I think that's something that I've noticed in this line of work is not only is starting at home and trying to be sustainable in whatever groups you are and putting pressure there, and then also your economic power as well, making sure that you're investing in sustainable things that you can then share with your community as well.
Yep. Well, if we go back, that's exactly right. This is this slide, Kirsten. So that's the institutional change in the house of worship. Absolutely. So you can do it personally, you can do it institutionally, and you can do it systemically. Mm-hmm. So being able to understand that this can touch all three of those areas. You may focus on one over another at a given time, but they actually overlap, to see them as separate, which we sometimes do. People just sort of focus on one thing and they don't think about how this can be expanded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, I'll just say things take a long time. At the Unitarian Universalist Community of Charlotte, which Richard and I are affiliated with, our green team started in 2015, and we wanted to be an accredited UU green sanctuary. And we took 2 years working on an action plan before we applied for that. And it was another 2.5 years before we ended up with solar. And so sometimes things take a long time, but when it comes to plastic bags kind of thing, that's a community-wide issue. And that's a single issue that it would be easier to organize around because you've chosen one thing. So sometimes when you're working within your congregation or your community and you're trying to get things done there, that's good. But, like Richard said, we did a whole year, and I think we've done 2 classes on environmental justice. And then the part that we're at now is how do we engage with organized communities, EJ communities? How do they need volunteers? And so that's where we're at now, that it comes into supporting environmental justice movements.
Are there other questions? Comments? So seeing none, we only have a few minutes left. One of the things that we start with at GreenFaith is I started with this today. Earlier I told a story where I identified my stake, and I actually made a choice to do something different in terms of my work. And so that's one of the things that I think is really important that we do. We might know what our problem is, and now we want to figure out what our role is in solving the problem. And in order to do that, we really need to know our story and our stake, because that is actually how we help organize others. When we can bring them into the work by helping them to articulate this, because what we need are folks who are really good at articulating what's at stake and helping people figure out how can I hook into this quickly. And that's a part of what I think GreenFaith really offers. I mean, we worked for, 2 or 3 months and managed to get more than 400 actions around the world. People were ready. People are hungry for this. And so now we're working with them to start their circle in their community. And so some of the things that GreenFaith offers, I'm going to skip through this because we're not going to do this activity. We're not going to talk about stories. This is what GreenFaith offers in terms of what we, the strategy that we use. Like, I have a whole 6-hour training that we do. We do a whole thing on stake and story. We do another thing on issue cutting. So there's a whole process that we take you through. I mean, it's 6 hours. It's not that long, but it's wonderful because it helps you kind of see the process and what you need to do. But we support with an organizing coach as you start your circle and continue to build it. You get access to the GreenFaith trainings to learn about relational organizing and campaigning. So we've talked a little bit about campaigning, and issue cutting is just figuring out what you're going to campaign on. We help you develop an internal process so that you have a strong circle and, are able to run good meetings if that's something that you need help with. We provide interaction with other circles so that you can share knowledge, challenges, successes. We offer interfaith and intercultural engagement locally, nationally, and internationally. There's nothing so fun as getting on a call and talking to people that you now know in other countries who are doing the same work. It's really inspiring. We give opportunity to sign on to larger campaigns and movements to further develop this united faith voice. That's what we're doing with the Line 3 action in Minnesota. We are inviting people to sign on to come to Minnesota with us. It's a global community working together for a world of flourishing life for all. I love that phrase, a world of flourishing life for all. That's in our vision statement. And going back to, thinking about the different ways, levels, and layers this happens, it is an opportunity to transform not just the world, but also ourselves in body, mind, and spirit as we deepen our connection to all of life. So, this is the work I'm doing. I love it. I really love being able to, talk to people and help folks start circles. And I'm going to stop sharing here so I can see your faces. Hello. Thoughts, questions? Our next training is in July. If you're interested, find some people. One of the first steps we say is find your 5 people and come and get trained. We'll take you through the process and help you get started.